they asked me to talk about the basic ingredients of a forest management plan, and they really, you can get as detailed as you want to in that sort of thing, but many of us operate on an informal basis with our plan. And you know, in my mind, the forest management plan is more formal. But I thought it was good to talk about the informality of it, because a lot of us, we have a concept in our mind of what we have and where we want to go, and a general idea of how to get there. In a sense, that's management plan. Or if you do nothing, I'm going to get ahead of myself, I don't want to be careful. The problem with that is it's less transferable. You know, it typically dies when we can't communicate it, or if we haven't communicated it. And it can be effective as long as one knows how to implement what needs to happen and can make it happen. And usually, though, it's less effective because it gets, a lot goes unsaid. The communication issue I've referred to, it doesn't pass hands well, either when it's sold or when the land changes hands. A more formal plan tends to alleviate some of those issues. You don't, you know, you've got something in writing, something people can refer to, whether you can communicate it or not. It's usually done by a professional. More easily transferred to the next generation, of course, and it includes details about time frames and activities that need to happen to get from where you are with your forest to where you want to be with your forest. And Benjamin Franklin said, to fail to plan is to plan to fail. So, you know, there's a little bit of truth in that, but in forestry, and especially in our region, we're blessed that the land will heal itself, so to speak, pretty easily. It just may not be in timber type that you're wanting, or in the type of forest that you, or it may not be the goals you're shooting for. So oftentimes that's not desirable. I would say for most of us it's not desirable, depending on what our ultimate goal is. And there are people who they just want their land to be natural, come back natural, and they just want to enjoy what's there, and it doesn't matter to them the species component and that kind of stuff. And I guess there's nothing wrong with that, but most of us see this as a financial opportunity, as a chance for recreation and wildlife, and those things, you know, you foster one wildlife species over another by simple changes, and if you don't have a plan to get from where you are to where you're going, it can cause issues. But where to start? You have to start with gathering information. You gather information about what you have currently, as I just mentioned, and gather information about where you want to be eventually. And I say eventually because this doesn't happen overnight, as you know. As landowners, it takes time for thinning to happen and the changes to grow from one type of forest to another type of forest to another. So I had a landowner come to me and say, I want you to look at my land. Tell me what I've got and what I need to do to make money with this. We get there and they have something that was clear cut 10 years ago and walked away from, and it's full of sweet gum and oak saplings 15, 20 feet tall that have very little value, and that's going to cost them money to get to where they're wanting to go in terms of having something that's growing and making money. So but the final goal needs to be communicated to whoever's writing your management plan. So the clearer you can be about your goals, the better job someone can do in helping you get there. Common goals include financial return, wildlife aesthetics, recreation, hunting, preservation or promotion of a certain species, and other things, or a combination of these. many times people want a financial return to be their number one, or hunting will be their number one and financial their number two, or vice versa. When in the management plans I've helped people write, so they want to make money, but they also want to enjoy it. Enjoy hunting, or maybe enjoy just viewing wildlife. And in the Southeast in general, pine management lends itself well to deer and turkey management, or even quail management in the long run. So these things can go hand in hand like that. The components of a management plan, you got information about the landowner, who they are, what their address is. This is written, a well-done management plan should be written so that it could, if I move on from my office, I've written a plan, Michael back there works with me, he can pick up that plan and look through it and put it into action. He'd know who to contact right off the bat. Location and directions, the simple, how do you get to the property kind of thing. Description of the property, what's there currently. It's that picture of what you're starting with. Your property management objectives and goals, as I said, important. It would have a timber type map and stand soil map. So a lot of what you can do on the property is driven by the soil properties that you have on your property. You can't grow pines well in a hardwood bottom, or that sort of thing. Stand level descriptions and recommendations that take what you have to where you want to go. And then tract level recommendations, such as keeping your boundary lines well identified, or fire breaks to protect you from fires coming from an adjoining landowner, or just to make it easier for, if there is a fire, for the commission to have, if they have an opening, they can much more easily reinstall a fire break than they can put one in. And then a well-written plan also will have a program that spells out what to do and when. I use 10 years, it could be any number of years, but 10 is a good time frame. If you have a management plan, you should think about revisiting and rewriting plans and reevaluating your goals and stuff every 10 years or so. I've included a sample of a management plan in here. I took one I wrote years ago and kind of changed some of the details, so that none of this is, some of it is actually true, but the location is not necessarily true. So this particular tract was actually in South Carolina, and it was a combination of timber types. And we'll get to a map in a minute and you can see the various timber types, but it had some pine plantation and some hardwood, 2 different stand ages of hardwood on it, and some farm fields. Farmer owned this property. So you see here we have our location and description, or management objectives, kind of outlining generally what the landowner wanted to do with his property, and the little historical information. This particular tract didn't have a whole lot other than it had been in his family a while, and that the significance, sometimes that can be a very significant thing for people that, my grandfather owned this and I want to pass it on down to my children. Information on threatened and endangered species needs to be a consideration. If you have, say, a bald eagle that nests on your property, you have to manage certain ways to preserve that nest tree and stuff. And I use that as one example. There's a salamander that you can't cut along the side slopes because of the salamander that's in South Alabama. there could be any number of other threatened and endangered species, but the web is a great place. You can look and you can see what might be these. It could be a plant species. This particular county this was in has an orchid that is listed on the endangered species list, and there wasn't found on this property, but it could be. Kind of thing. So the web is a good place to look for that sort of stuff, and also oftentimes the commission might keep a list and stuff. I know AFM keeps a running list. We have a biologist that gives us updates on changes and things like that, and where to go to find this information. This is stand description and management recommendations. This is the pine stand on that tract that I mentioned. It was about 20 years old or so, as I recall. Let's see, age 16. And at the time I wrote this, I had just thinned this stand for the manager. So we'd written it a little earlier. We'd have had a description of recommendations that say, it's time to thin. So because this had just been thinned, the recommendation was, let's revisit thinning it again in 5-6 years. And that's exactly what this says. It gives you some information about the acreage, what's there, the age, general quality of the site, what type of soil is on it, a little bit about the topography and understory vegetation, stocking levels, and the average diameter bowl size of the tree and height. And this was one of the hardwood stands. This one had been cut to the ground in 1985 or so, and that gets back to that history. The owner had this property in his family a long time. He could give me some of that detail. Oftentimes we just have to kind of take a guess if it's hardwood based on the size of the trees and stuff, or you can bore trees and estimate the age that way by counting growth rates. It's a little harder to do in hardwood stuff. This was basically good growing stock, hardwood, and it had come back naturally, and it was mostly pulpwood, and it was doing well. Here is the stand map I'm talking about. The red, this is color infrared map. So the red parts are pine, and that's what had just been thinned that I was mentioning. The whiter parts are fields, and then somewhere the one I did. This is hardwood here and here, there and there, and then these stands here had been cut before. Let me flip on. This is a third hardwood stand of timber that hadn't been cut when the other was cut, and it was basically in that stream right there, or I call it a stream, but it was older, more mature timber, fewer trees per acre, but a lot more basal area per acre, a lot more volume per acre in hardwood sawtimber. Map component always, good track map will include a locator map, and it'll include a scale and north arrow, so you can, and a little detail about the property. Our newer maps would include a stand lister, and this is, like I said, an older plan, it's an older map. The stand lister would give you a snapshot of stand 1 is 1992 loblolly, and stand 2 is 1985 hardwood. So you get an idea of what you're looking at just from right one page. I mentioned earlier considering soils and how that might impact it. This is a soil map I just pulled as an example. It's not the same property, but it does. You can barely see the orange lines. It outlines, you know, different soil types on this property that it's for. You get this from USGS Soil Web Survey, I think it's available online. And it gives you...
It's on the NRCS website.
NRCS. Okay. The map, it will print, when you print it, it'll print a little legend. It gives you some more detail about the soil types and that kind of stuff. You can drill down at that website, you can drill down and get even more detailed information about major soil types you have on your property. And get as in depth as you wanted to with your soils. Soil geology, growth drives growth potential on things. And so that's important, especially if you're considering financial gain as your major component in things. And people like TMOs, and Richard was just here from FIA, you know, they consider that stuff pretty heavily when they're going to choose a family of trees to plant on a given site. They want to know what the geology was, the soil information, because they want to put the right tree on that site. And that's something this soils information gives us is very helpful. This was the other stand. And then, of course, I mapped out at the same time, this is the ag land. It was mapped out on that property. You know, always with ag land, there's potential if you stop farming it, you can plant it back in pines and put it into production. I say pines because that's what's typically done. You can plant what you wanted to, I guess, within reason and bounds of what soil types are and what will grow there. Track level recommendations, you know, maintaining property lines. Are there any access issues that need to be considered? Maintaining fire lanes and that kind of stuff. You mentioned NRCS. Yeah, NRCS, I don't think they have the WIP program currently that does this, but they have this time. They would help fund establishing fire breaks and reestablishing fire breaks on properties. And I think the EQUIP program still is in effect, and you can apply for various things. One being reforestation, and my wife and I have an application in now, waiting on funding. It just depends on where you are and whether you get funding. We're hoping, to get a little assistance in putting this back, some timber we cut early last year, back into production this year. And NRCS has these programs. Your consultant or the Alabama Forest Commission generally have some information on these kinds of things, and they can help you in that application process, or at least point you in the right direction so that you can make the application. Having said that, there is a process. There's formal and informal, and there's one kind of in between. Every time you apply for this kind of funding, you have to have a management plan. Oftentimes that is handled by a simple letter, and a registered forester would type you a letter saying this is the recommendations we have for this property. Chemical site prep, burn, hand plant with longleaf pines, and burn at H3 or something like that. It's one-page snapshot just for that stand or that area that is impacted by your application. And technically, that is a management plan. And then the last component of good management plan is 10-year management recommendations. All right, for the boxwood tract you see on here, it recommended a winter burn in 2011. That was thinned in 2010. So the idea was reduce the debris out there, reduce the fire hazard, and to help control some of the the herbaceous and shrubby stuff that would come up and compete with your pines, but also it cleans it up and gives a fresh seed bed for native plants that deer eat, rabbits eat, and that sort of thing to foster wildlife at the same time. Then reburn it in 3 years, put it on that 3-year burn regime, keep it clean, keep it open, and keep things done. And the idea there was to break it up into 3 different sections and burn it section every 2 to 3 years so that you can keep it on rotation. Then you always have something in freshly burned or mid-succession kind of herbaceous stuff coming up under it, and a little bit older, and it gives a variety of food for wildlife. So, and then the boundary lines maintained and painted or marked in some way. Where can I get a management plan? Your consultant forester can help you. Alabama Forestry Commission will help you. And any registered forester can help you. Many procurement foresters are registered also. They can provide that service as well if they're willing to. That's all I have on it, unless y'all have questions. Thank you very much.